Hello, friends. And that's how I'm beginning to feel about you on this journey that we're on as I read through your responses, your thoughtful, insightful responses that I come to value highly. And so, hello, friends. This is titled Vocation. Up through week 4, our focus has been on laying some foundation. Defining spiritual formation and exploring more on a personal level who we are, where we are headed, and considering our sense of personal agency in the face of the sovereignty of God and the human condition, all of which is unquestionably foundation to where we are headed. With week 5 and building on that foundation, we're going to consider what all of this has to do with the ministerial calling and its responsibilities. We are not moving away from spiritual formation. Far from it. In fact, everything we've talked about so far in the more general area of Christian spiritual formation is also about ministerial formation, which I shall point out is the title of this course. So we must give serious attention not only to your calling and your formation for ministry in whatever capacity you may be living that out, but also to the primary responsibility of a pastor for the formation of the people of God in community, a vital, essential, formidable, and often troubling calling. I think this task grows daily more important. We live in a world of people who live more and more out of a sense of individual need, individuality, individualism, and at best, a personal piety that tends to avoid and refuse a larger understanding of what it means to be the people of God. Referencing Havel, Palmer in Let Your Life Speaks notes that the power of authentic leadership, ministry, is found in the human heart. Authentic leaders in every setting aim at liberating the heart, their own and others, so that the powers of the heart can liberate the world. Nowhere is there a greater need than in the life and work of those who are called by God to call people into loving relationships with God, others, and themselves, and the world. One way to define Jesus' ministry on earth was in building deep, connected, committed relationships, and to call others to do the same. In one of my favorite verses, John 15:15, Jesus says, I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. What a powerful description of the relational quality of our work, and a declaration of our friendship with God through God's Son, Jesus. So for the next few weeks, we will consider your own role, your calling. And seriously now, what is more essential to vocational formation than the foundation? That is God's call on our lives to live in ministry to others and in service to God. In one of their websites, Dallas Bible University defines vocation this way: as a certain kind of life ordained and imposed on humans by God for the common good, based on giftedness, desires, affirmations, and human need. That is a really hefty and powerful understanding of what vocation means, especially in the context of Christian faith. For several years, I worked in the national offices of the Church of God, what we now call Church of God Ministries. I worked primarily in two areas, Christian education, aka discipleship, aka spiritual formation, and congregational and pastoral care. Those two things go really closely together. The latter was achieved primarily through the work of a program called SHAPE, SHAPE, an acronym for Sustaining Health and Pastoral Excellence. It was a coaching ministry for pastors that has been largely subsumed under the credential and ordination processes of the church. What I discovered during those years of spending long conversations with pastors and pastors of pastors is their terrible fragility. Indeed, pastoring is a demanding and often exhausting calling, not only physically so, but also emotionally and socially, and perhaps most alarmingly, spiritually. Did you know that one of the most often expressed wishes of pastors' spouses is that their pastor spouse would leave ministry? Why? Spouses often experienced a high level of loneliness, as did their pastor spouses. I don't have time to go into why that is and how that happens, to explore this much further, but it was then, and it still is a reality. One of the major contributors to this struggle is that pastors don't take care of themselves. They do not, ironically, even practice the very behaviors that they are teaching and encouraging the parishioners to learn and practice. One of the astonishing values of SHAPE is this conviction. Listen carefully to this. The pastor is more God-centered than church-centered. This is a value that cuts directly across the assumptions of many pastors and even more congregations. Ministers who do not honor that, however, that focus, may find themselves with a serious case of burnout at best. Just recently, Barna posted some new findings about pastoral health. And on the Barna website, we read this. New Barna data shows that pastors' confidence and satisfaction in their vocation has decreased significantly in the past few years. And 2 in 5, 41%, say they've considered quitting ministry in the past 12 months. One of the most surprising discoveries in those years I worked with pastors is how many of the pastors that I worked with, had forgotten their calling. And I put forgotten in quotes because it's not really forgotten, but it has become as good as forgotten, sort of non-operational. Like many mission statements that get lots of money spent to develop and lots of time and energy given to, they get posted on walls, they get posted in brochures, and they're really never used in the way they are supposed to, never actually put into action. I cannot tell you how often I sat across a table from pastors who broke into tears as they recalled and shared this highly personal heart story, the story of my call. What is more important in the living out of our vocational call than to remember that call and our response, and keep it a living presence with us as we continue to live into that and out of that calling. Now, before you engage this assignment for this week, the personal storytelling, I want you to take the time to watch a brief, I think it's about 20 minutes, TED Talk entitled, it's Brene Brown and the Power of Vulnerability, and you'll find the link on Canvas. This is an important backdrop for your assignment for this week, and even if you've already seen this, I have several times, I still want you to watch it again. So this week, you are being asked to remember your calling, to remember my call. You are invited to tell us your story. I have adjusted the assignment so that it can be more easily posted as part of our discussion, so we can all share in these wonderful stories rather than asking you to do something fancy or challenging or just send me some kind of a document. But that's all you do for this week. No other assignment, nothing more to read than the TED Talk presentation. I cannot overemphasize the serious value of this time of reflection. I hope you will take the time to remember this in detail. Remember the location. Where did it happen? When did it happen? What was going on in your life? The voice. What did you hear? How did God speak to you? And your own emotional response to that call on your life. I have often stated that persons in ministry should take an annual retreat only for the purpose of remembering God's call and their response. Let this week be the first of those annual retreats for you. Traveling mercies on your journey, looking forward to your stories.